Yo, man. Goatse Poo Poo. I have no clue how to pronounce your name. I have no clue how to say your in real life name either. I don't even know if you told me your name. But I am finally ready to talk about this LP, ready to talk about ISIS's Panopticon, their third album released in 2004. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get back to you, but with this video. But really the reason why was not just because I was listening to this LP, figuring out whether or not I liked it, what I should say about it, but I was sort of getting acclimated to the band too, because honestly, this is my first ISIS album, and this is my first time listening to an ISIS LP from beginning to end. Until now, they were never really a band that caught my attention, and in retrospect, listening to this, I could see why they didn't really catch my attention at the time, but now I really do see a lot of merit in the band. I see a lot of talent, and I'm going to be happy to go rack it in my CD collection over there after I'm done talking about it. So, obviously these guys are a post-metal band, and I always thought that term was a little bit kind of pretentious, kind of bothered me a little bit, just irked me a tiny little itty-bitty bit. But then, you know, from what I'd read, the band's frontman, Aaron Turner, had actually coined that phrase, or at least, you know, takes that description on very proudly from what I've read. And also what I didn't know is that he's the founder of Hydra Head Records. I had no clue of that. And I love that label. So I'm extremely happy you turned me on to this and, you know, really frickin' schooled me with this ISIS LP. You know, the thing is, one of the reasons that the whole post-metal thing bugged me is that it sort of seems like, you know, a lot of these metal bands were saying, okay, well, you know, we're subtle. We're going to be more subtle, we're going to build more, we're going to be the thinking man's metal. And I'm just kind of like, well, what do you mean? It's like you're just going to be thinking in terms of, you know, us comparing you to other metal music. Oh, well, they're subtle when you compare them to other metal bands. I mean, and that's kind of how I felt about ISIS, and that's how I felt about post-metal in general. You know, in terms of subtlety, yes, this thing is subtle when you compare it to other metal bands, but if you're going to compare it to other post-rock bands, you're going to compare this to Godspeed. Godspeed has so much subtlety that ISIS should piss their pants if you're going to compare subtlety. However, what ISIS has, you know, and this is something that I didn't really put much into, but now I think is really important, one of the pantheons of the band, is that they have that loud, aggressive, bone-crushing sound, but they tame it into something really emotional and powerful, as opposed to, you know, just angry, just voluminous. You know, they channel a lot of that volume into a lot of very affecting musical ideas, I guess you could say. What I also noted was that I heard a lot of Godflesh influence, a lot of Neurosis. There's obviously some Tool influence on there, and I know they've gone on tour with Tool before, so that's not a huge surprise. And some Swans in there too. You know, I do hear that heavy, sludgy, industrial kind of Godflesh rock in there, and I have no I have no doubt that these guys are into the other stuff Justin Broderick is doing these days with Jesu, too. I do hear a lot of those influences in here, but, you know, there is something that is unique to the band in here, too. I just love the sound on here. It is just so clean. It is so clear. It just reminds me of, like, water. Just the sound here. Just crystal clear glass of water. You can't improve upon a glass of water. It's just a glass of water. I mean, it's, you know, you drink it, it's perfect. Maybe cool it down, put it in the fridge, but it's a glass of water. It's just perfect. I think that's something really great about this LP. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, engineered piece of music. I mean, this thing is really, really produced. This thing is really labored. However, I would never call it overproduced. It doesn't really sound like the human element and the emotion and the humanity of this music is sapped out of the production in the mixing or in the engineering. It's just so emotionally heavy and so emotionally dense, but altogether extremely well produced, one of the most beautifully produced albums that that I'm going to own. And that was another one of the things I needed to sort of get past when I was first listening to this. I was like, ooh, is this overproduced? I was kind of sitting there and thinking about it. Is this overproduced? Is this really overproduced? And one of the reasons why I came to the conclusion that it isn't is that the bass sounds so good. In a lot of these overproduced albums, the guitars are compressed beyond a point of no return where almost everything is drowned out and sacrificed at the hand of that. On this album, I think it's fantastic that the guitars still have that aggressive punch to the speakers, but you hear the drums so clearly, you hear the vocals so clearly, and you hear the bass humming along, you know, just really fantastic mixing there with the bass and just an amazing tone on that too. Some other things about the band, I love their dynamics. I love how the first track, which is So Did We, started off with this really awkward beat. It is in 12. It's in like a 12 timing. However, the band breaks it up into increments of 7 and 5, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. It's just, you know, it feels kind of awkward, but it grooves too. They really get in that groove. And there are these little flashes of technical ability in the music too, but they don't shove it down your throat. They don't shove it in your face. You know, it's just for effect. It's just for emotion, and it's just for color. I like that because they keep the music meditative, they keep it thoughtful, they keep it cerebral, even when they're getting really loud and pounding and heavy. I love the builds, you know, but like I said, you know, the builds aren't as subtle as I would like them to be. They could be a little bit more subtle, but that all kind of goes back to that metal element. I mean, metal doesn't have a whole lot of subtlety to it, and you know, there's only so much subtlety ISIS can put into their music before that metal sound starts to pretty much seep out of the music. So, you know, I do realize there's kind of a balance with that. If you just throw in too much subtlety and you throw in too much softness and too many easy builds, you know, where the hell is the metal going to be? Where the hell is the heavy pounding primal part going to be? Like I said, when I first listened to this, I wasn't the biggest fan. And I think part of that was that I was listening to it a little low, listening to it on headphones. I just thought it was okay, maybe a little plain, didn't really strike me or grab me. I think when the album really kind of resonated with me was when I was playing it loud and cranked it up. So even though ISIS does have a softer approach than a lot of metal, like most metal, it feels best when you turn it up loud. You know, especially an album this well produced must be played at an extremely high volume, on the hi-fi, on the big speakers that I have over there. And yeah, that's when it really sounded badass. And then when I put it on headphones again, you know, I was sort of able to still remember how good it felt and how good it sounded loud. And, you know, then I was really able to get into it a little bit more. Yeah, I loved the opening of Backlit. Really meditative, really kind of sleepy, kind of like, you know, you sway back and forth to it. Sounded really nice. And, you know, though it built, I wish they kind of just jammed on that for a little bit longer and just sort of really fleshed it out and played it out and sort of saw how far they could go with that song and just go with that, you know, that idea. You know, a couple other things. This music isn't completely without subtlety. There were some moments where I heard like these really ethereal guitar hums in the background, you know, just kind of just like coloring the back as the band was totally being fucking metal up front. And track 1, the first track, So Did We. I already mentioned that track, but I want to go back to it. Does that song have a melodica in the background? I swear to God, I'm hearing a melodica in that track. And if it is, that's got to be the first melodica I've ever heard in a fucking metal song, honestly. And another thing I love about this LP is that the songs are long, and even though they're long, they still really kind of just breeze by. They don't feel long, they don't meander, because they're constantly changing, they're constantly shifting, the band is constantly throwing different ideas and sounds and concepts at you, so they never get dull, they never get boring, and they never feel all that repetitive. In fact, I feel like ISIS could be a little bit more repetitive and still not come off boring on this album. Like, they could flesh these songs out maybe just a little bit more, even though they're long to begin with. yeah, I mean, I feel like this LP could go a little bit farther, could get a little bit more indulgent than it already is. I mean, as you know, this is my first ISIS LP, so I really have no idea of what their previous albums are like or what their newer albums are like. I don't know if there are moments where they actually do get more indulgent than Panopticon, or they get more subtle than Panopticon. But this was a great album. This was a win in my book, and now I really do see why people love ISIS, and you know, I am becoming a fan. I am becoming a fan. Hopefully, if I can get some time, because you know I am the internet's busiest fucking music nerd, I'll get a chance to listen to their new LP, and you know, we'll most definitely be looking forward to anything else that they put out in the future. Holy shit, you know, just a good album, just a good album, just a great album, and a great band too. There you go. Thank you for my first fucking ISIS LP. Fucking thank you. You're the best. Oh my gosh. Forever.